Welcome, you guys. I'm so excited to have my mentor and coach, Maryann Ehmann, with us today. I'm going to introduce her more in just a minute. Right now, I just want to thank you guys for being with me. Thank you for supporting this spirit-centered business movement, and I invite you to subscribe and share. Let your friends know if you hear something amazing, which today I guarantee you will. Please let your friends know to watch it we're 5 o'clock on Wednesday nights. That's Pacific time. And you can find us on YouTube, on my channel, Bralynn Newby, or on Facebook on my page, Bralynn Newby International, and also on Kingdom Talks Media and the Fringe Radio Network. We're so blessed to be able to be syndicated on our podcast if you prefer to listen to an MP3 across the Fringe Radio Network, which includes iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Castbox, Deezer, gosh, lots of others, and we want to thank Fringe Radio Network and Johnny Iron for syndicating our show. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you to Kingdom Talks Media for letting us be on your network as well. Okay, I think that's all of my announcements. Maryann, I am so blessed that you're here. This is so cool.
Thank you. I'm so excited myself.
Awesome. So Maryann is a powerhouse speaker and a coach and a businesswoman, and you were like a lawyer. You have so much under your hat. Why don't you give us a quick little bio, and then we'll go into your story of how you blend your spiritual principles into your business principles.
Yeah, so I specialize with working with coaches and consultants and helping them. Most of them are spiritually inclined themselves, people of mission and purpose. And but you know, in today's age, there's a sea of coaches out there. So one of the things I help my coaches do is to actually distinguish themselves, to shine in a way that is not like systems out there. It's not the norm. To find their own unique brilliance and put it out there in the world in such a way that they are magnetic. So that's basically what I do.
I love that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you do come from a corporate background, and you do have a little bit of a big story about how you got into what you're doing. So
yeah,
I would love to hear it. Yeah.
Well, are you ready for me to share that piece?
You know what? You go with whatever you feel is on your heart to share right now.
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the reasons why I agreed to be on the show is because, number one, I love you. And number two, though, I feel like people who have strong spiritual bents, you know, strong spiritual inclinations struggle with combining their faith and business. Yes. They struggle with making money. They struggle with promoting themselves. They struggle with getting out there and being more visible. There's a lot of reasons why they are held back from really being who they're meant to be, who God has called them to be, what they're here to do, and to prosper doing it. There are so many obstacles, especially, I think, people of faith and strong spirituality.
Yes, and that's so true, because and just to play the devil's advocate, the reason why probably is because they're heart-based. You know, they want to serve people, and they downplay their own gifting because it's so easy for them, and so they're like, oh, I'll just give it away. You know, I can't ask for money for that because, you know, so yeah. We love them. They're empathetic, and yeah. Okay.
And that's part of the reason why they want to serve is because right. They have big hearts.
Right.
They have big hearts. They have strong callings. They want to serve, but to make money doing so is a little bit, they feel, you know, it's funny because every time I talk to my big hearted clients who are coaches, mm-hmm. and they're all about the mission, and I made a difference in this person's life and a difference in that person's life, and we celebrate it, and it's absolutely wonderful. And then when we talk about the money piece, their eyes go down. Their eyes go down, yeah. Or they blink, or I charge this, you know, there's always some kind of telltale indicator that they are uncomfortable with right. The money piece.
Yeah,
right?
and I can tell you, I've been there, Maryann, and you know that I've been there. So.
And I have too. Yeah. I have too. And so I totally get it. Yep. There's no shame or blame here. Right. But so I'll go back a little bit in my story because I did have that same problem myself, and I'm not like all over it. It's not like it never triggers me, right? But I know now what to do with it when it does. So, and that makes a big difference, right?
Yes.
So I started off my career as a elementary school teacher. And as an elementary school teacher, there's no charging for anything. You just show up for your job and you do what you're supposed to do. But then I decided that after several years, I was actually getting kind of bored and I knew there was something else. And so I went to law school. It was an opportunity that got presented to me. And I was like, why not? Yeah, I could do that. And so I went to law school. And I ended up in law school loving tax law. Tax law was my forte.
Wow.
And so because of that, I went on to become a prosecuting attorney. Nothing to do with each other.
That's amazing. Okay, it was a school teacher to a prosecuting attorney. I love it. Okay.
Yep. I mean, I just don't know how that happened, but it did. And I should tell you, too, that during that time, I was an atheist. I was a bulldog atheist. I grew up Catholic. I loved going to church. I was very, the Stations of the Cross, when I went through them, made me cry every single year. And so, God and Christ were extremely important to me as a child. It was like my sanctity because there was a lot of tumultuous things going on in my household. So I felt the comfort of God and Jesus when I was a kid. But then when I got older, and especially in college, I started to feel constricted. I started to feel like I had maybe bought onto a lie, that everything was about control and people wanted control. And so I decided, with the help of my boyfriend at the time, who later became my husband, but I decided that, God is a hoax and Jesus is a joke. That was my saying. God is a hoax and Jesus is a joke. And guess what? I didn't get fried. There was no bolt of lightning that came out and took me down. And in fact, I felt this great sense of freedom. And now I wasn't so restricted. I didn't feel guilty all the time like I had before. I didn't feel all this pressure to be the best behaved person, Wow. And I felt this sense of freedom. And that went on for about 10 years. And during that time, marvelous things happened to me. I was up for anything. So after law school and I became a prosecuting attorney, I was still an atheist. But, sometimes what happens is when you're in a time of life where I felt so lonely as a prosecutor. I felt lonely because I was an Asian in provincial Connecticut, because I worked for the state attorney's office in Connecticut. I felt like lonely because I was a smart woman in a very powerful position. So up until being a prosecutor, I had no trouble with guys. I always had a bevy of dates, but all of that just dried up when I became a prosecuting attorney. So the idea of combining love and romance with a high-powered position, they just didn't. They were like oil and water.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. Guys are so intimidated by that.
Yes.
Yeah, and let me know. Let me tell you, I'm dating now, so yeah. So I totally get that.
Now, just speaking about that for a second, women, we want to be loved. We want to be cherished. We want to be esteemed. I think everybody does, right?
Of course.
But we also love the excitement of our careers. We love the purpose. We love the challenges of it. We love all that. We love the freedom and the flexibility. Yes. And sometimes, though, we will dampen ourselves. And we don't just do it in our relationships or love relationships, but we also do it, just to be in community with people sometimes so that we don't stand out too much. Right?
You hit the nail on the head right there. Wow. I think we need to do a whole nother section just on that. That's really good.
All right. Well, yes, let's come back to that another time. But okay. I think that's a big deal. So that's what was happening to me. So I was feeling very and not myself, like putting bad guys away may be noble, but it wasn't me. And I didn't know who I was. So that set me up for a depression. It set me up for, like, I was making great money, had a great apartment and beautiful car and clothes and all of the things that I wanted, but I was very lonely and depressed. So I went home to Rochester, New York. I was living in Connecticut, went home to Rochester to be with family for Thanksgiving. And during that time, my sister, prior to that, one of my sisters had become a Christian. And I thought that was wonderful for her because she was a little bit crazy and a little bit nuts. And I thought this will be a little grounding. At least she's got something.
Yeah.
But I'm smart. And I'm in a position of prestige. And I can't be having any of that.
Wow.
All right. People would think that I am nutso. I'm the only female working with a bunch of guys. And so I cannot go back. And they all knew I had this depression going on,
Oh, right.
Not that I was unfunctional.
Yeah.
But they could tell. And I could talk a little bit with some people. But anyway, I went home, and that was the last thing in the world. God was the last thing in the world I thought would help me. So during that time, my sister kept talking to me about the Bible and about God and about Jesus. And I was progressively getting angrier and angrier because the things that she was saying made no sense to me. I didn't want it. And I didn't know how to tell her that I will punch her if she doesn't shut up.
Wow.
So finally, she got the message and she said, I'll stop if you go to church with me tomorrow. Which, long story short, I did. And I had a massive encounter with God. And I saw God. The encounter I had with God was God as love. Not God as anything else, but love. And it was my first real encounter with the power of love and how transformative love is. And it actually transformed every cell in my body. I felt it electrically. I felt it vibrationally. I felt it like wind blowing through me. It was a physical, tangible experience while I was standing there. And I didn't want anybody to know or ask me questions because that would just set off a whole nother thing, right?
Wow.
But the thing that opened the door was the thought of, and the pastor was talking about this thought, that the Greeks valued wisdom and knowledge and wealth and all of those things that I valued, but the one thing they were missing was trust in God. And as soon as he made me take out a coin and it said, "In God we trust," I read that coin because I like money. I like money. And I read the coin. It said, "In God we trust." And all of a sudden the doors blew open in my mind. So that was kind of the beginning, I would say, of how do I take this trust in God and faith and put it into my career, because I was a career woman. I'm a lawyer. So I go back to my practice, the state office. I walk in the door, and the men who I work with all looked at me and said, "What happened to you?" It was so visible.
Wow.
It was so visible. So I didn't understand at that time. I've come to understand that the glory of God actually shines. It makes us radiate when we allow it.
Yeah.
Right? Even when we don't, we can put dampers. And I always say, fear slimes the shine.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, fear slimes the shine. So when we are in a position when we are experience God's glory, and in glory meaning just radiance, it's weight of authority, it's a wisdom you carry with it, it's an elegance, it's a beautiful thing. It's very tangible. People can see it. But I didn't understand a lot of that then. I'm just like, okay, yeah. And they said, "What happened to you?" And I'm like, I think I met Jesus. I didn't know what else to say. And that's what came out of my mouth. So after a bit, and I was just like, I didn't care what happened to me. I didn't care about my work. I didn't care about guys. I just cared about God. But then I had another, and that gave me the courage to leave. That gave me the courage to leave this prestigious position and to follow my heart, which was really financial planning, investments, tax planning. And that became my new world. I went to work for Cigna. Everybody knows probably who Cigna is today. Yeah. And I became a investment planner and financial planner, and I loved it until I hit another wall. And again, these walls are stepping stones. And the wall was another wall of rejection. I was dating somebody who worked for the Attorney General's office, and he was cheating on me. Oh. And so my heart was broken. And all the stuff growing up about being Asian in a white culture, I'd been abused. There are a lot of things that happened to me as a child that came flooding forward. And all the rejections that I had perceived growing up came front and center. I couldn't do my job anymore. And I went into a funk again. And this time, though, I had God. And so with that, I was able to address all the issues from my childhood, but I did it in such a way that I couldn't work. I became non-functional. I was in psychiatric care. Wow. So days on end in a fetal position on a couch with matted hair, no shower. And I did a lot of drinking at that time too. So car accidents, I was a mess. It was love, the love of God actually, that brought me out of all of that. And Cigna called me back and had me come and work for their home office. They did not want to let me go. A sign of favor and a sign of love. And eventually they transferred me out from Hartford, Connecticut to beautiful Newport Beach, California, where I was given my own private office with a view overlooking the Pacific Ocean and Catalina Island.
Oh my gosh.
It was amazing. And that's where I met my husband. And I started in that place. I loved helping people with their financial goals. But now I was the designer. I helped the planners with their clients design their plan. So I was quite an elevated position. Again, power, prestige. Mm-hmm. But this time I started offering Bible studies in work and ministering to a lot of the women there. And because I was in that position, I had a lot of authority and a lot of favor with them. And so I started teaching them about God and about the Word of God. And I wasn't even in church at the time.
So how many years was this from when you first got saved? Or
it was about 4 years, 3 years.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. 3 or 4 years. Yeah. Now, here's where the problem really started for me, though, in combining faith and business. Because up until that point, I kind of struggled a little with it, but it wasn't that bad, But our business was all about making money, helping clients make money. Mm-hmm. All right? Mm-hmm. And helping them fulfill their financial dreams, their dreams that required financial assets, right? That part was great. But the problem was the programs that we were using were not making as much money as they used to for the firm. So the management of the firm wanted to take business, steal it actually, and go to another company. I was privy to this because I was expected to come along and follow with them. Wow. So now I am at a crossroads. I'm either going to follow along and go with this team that they're like family to me. Yeah. Or I'm going to stick to my spiritual principles of integrity and honesty, because this was not honest. This was theft. And I was at a crossroads and I didn't know what to do. Before I did anything, home office found out about it. They came down and with their top executives, sequestered us all into a conference room, just the management team. And one by one, they wanted to hear the story. What's really going on here? Because this is what we're hearing. And one by one, my team lied. and they said that it's all untrue. It's just rumors. And I was the last person to speak. And sweat is pouring off of me. Honestly, just pouring off me. And my throat is constricting as they're getting closer and closer and closer to me to hear what I have to say.
It's happening to me as you're telling me this story. I'm like, okay, continue. Oh my gosh.
It was terrible. It was terrible. And so they get to me, and I don't remember the exact words, but there's something to the effect like, they're all lying. They're all lying, and they are stealing the business.
Wow. Talk about
and
a
at
negative
that moment,
move.
Oh my gosh, they called me a traitor, and I was a liar, and all of that, And it was only my voice compared to everybody else's, Wow. But they believed me. The management executives believed me, and they shut down the whole operation. Those people had to take everything and leave, They did end up setting up shop someplace else, and I was promoted. And at the time, I didn't really care if I was promoted or not because my hair was falling out. I was anemic. I had so much stress. I had to go and get chiropractic care like multiple times a week, right? So I just wanted to get out of there. Now, the beauty about it all was the year before, they hired this man who is a new recruit, and he was one of my students. And it turns out that he ended up becoming my husband. So I met my husband under those circumstances, and we just celebrated 35 years of marriage. Yay.
Oh, congratulations. That's amazing. Good job.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I know you've been through a lot with him. Even when I first met you. Yeah, okay, a different story. So continue.
Well, after that, so this was the struggle for me. So as I continued working, it became like you can't combine spirituality and faith and business. I was not seeing how to do that. Now, that instance, yes, I had to come forward, right? But going forward, it still was two separate things, Now, I went and sought out a man who was an executive for Wycliffe. Have you ever heard of Wycliffe?
I don't
Bible
think
translators. So. Yeah, it's a huge organization. They translate Bibles all over the world. And at that time, they were really, really big. I don't know where they are these days.
Yeah, maybe I have heard of them. Anyway.
So I had lunch with the vice president. And I was like, I want to leave this, and I want to work in ministry because it's either business or ministry.
Yeah.
It's
and
not.
When was this, and about what year?
This is back in the mid-'80s.
Okay.
Okay. And he said to me, that's not true. He said, you can do so much more work and more good right in your career, right in what you're doing. You can minister to people and make a difference. And I'm like, no, I don't see it. I don't see how you can do it. And so I quit. Now, I didn't go into ministry, but I quit. I quit my job and went into business for myself as a business consultant, as a cash flow consultant. I had 3 clients who all appreciated my faith. They were all themselves people of faith, and they were very wealthy, and I was just their trusted advisor, go-to person. Mm-hmm. And that's how I got out of that. But then we adopted a baby, and she stole my heart, and I gave it all up, and I became a stay-home mom for 20 years.
Oh.
Okay? Gave it all up. Now, what I did do during those 20 years, besides homeschool my children and manage my husband's business, was people always identified me as a person of wisdom that they could seek counseling for. So a lot of pastors, even though they might have had counseling staff, when they hit their hardest cases, they would refer them to me. Now, I never thought about this at all, but they were getting paid, the pastors and the counseling staff, but they give their hardest cases to Maryann, and Maryann was never paid. It wasn't even thought that Maryann would be paid. I never even thought I should be paid. You get paid for doing things like law or working in corporate, but you don't get paid for using your natural gifts and talents. You just don't.
Okay, so
in fact, just be grateful. Be grateful you get to.
That's true, and I want to open a controversial subject or just say something that could get people mad, but were those pastors that gave those clients to you men?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because the men get to get paid. I mean, this is not now, this is not current, this is 20 years ago or whenever that was, but that is the mindset that we come out of, right?
Yeah, and it's less than that. In certain areas, I think, of the world and the country, all right? So, and I frankly, I don't want to necessarily criticize them for that.
No, because it's just the culture.
They're operating according to what they believe is right.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. And where I was coming from, women were not in leadership. Mm-hmm. Now, my husband has a doctorate in ministry. He was in leadership. And quite frankly, for me, and this is not the church's fault, but to show you how I'd gone from being a prosecuting attorney in court, very public arena, right? Mm-hmm. Teaching in corporate, training people in corporate, very public, to going into a church eventually where I felt, I'm not saying they did this to me, but I felt like if I had something to say, I should tell my husband so he could say it for me. Okay. Now, at the time, that seemed normal.
Yeah.
You know?
I know, it's just the way it was, yeah.
It's just the way it was. Mm-hmm. And not so in a lot of churches. It just happened to be in the area I lived in that was practiced a lot, right? Yeah. Yeah. So when it came time for me, then my kids are like, my youngest is 15. And I'm thinking about getting back out there. Mm-hmm. And I started with a network marketing company because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't want to go back into law. I didn't want to go back into finances. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what I could do. I felt irrelevant and unmarketable.
Gosh.
I had no skills.
Isn't that amazing how we think about ourselves? You are absolutely brilliant and you had all of those skills, and yet you thought, what am I going to do? I don't have any skills.
No skills.
Wow.
And nobody will pay me for what I do have.
Oh.
And I was told that too. I was actually told this by a woman who had conferences that people were not going to pay me for what I did. And so that hung around for quite a long time. And it only mirrored what I already believed. See, What we get is just a mirror for what we already believe, and we don't realize that.
Oh my gosh. I so want to, just encourage the audience. Gosh, this is so not true. This is so not true. Okay, Maryann, continue.
It is true, though, if you think it's true.
Well, yes, you're absolutely right.
Yes, you can have a different truth.
Yes.
But it's not true according to God.
Yes.
It may be true according to church communities. It may be true according to some circles. It may be true according to your upbringing, but it's not true according to God.
Yeah.
And that's where we hang our hat, right?
Right.
Yeah. So when I was coming out and I heard that, and people, I was working with a coach actually, because I thought, well, I met him at a writing conference, and I wanted to write a book, and he was a Christian. Mm-hmm. So I thought, oh, great. We're all on the same page here. And what I realized when I started to get back into business was I knew nobody that was not a Christian, number one. My circle had gotten so small that all I knew were Christians. And number two, I could only speak Christianese.
Oh, yeah.
And number three, anything that I was about to say or teach had to be backed up with chapter and verse, or I couldn't say it.
Oh my gosh.
I was a ball of knots. Okay. So with the belief that nobody's going to pay me for what I know, I can't say anything or teach anything unless it has chapter verse. I don't even know how to talk anything but Christianese. What a perfect setup to get into business.
Right. And I think that a lot of people are in that space. So I'm so glad you're blowing the doors off this thing, because
Yeah.
so many people are right there right now. I meet them, the people come to me, the clients, and they don't see how brilliant they are because they've got these filters on. So yeah, go ahead, blow those doors off. We're ready.
We need to have the doors blown off. And sometimes, though, we don't have the permission to do that, or we don't know how to do it, And so the thing that sometimes you have to do is get outside of those communities.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had major encounters with God during that time, visions. Now, obviously, visions are an important part of our spiritual walk. But at the time, I did not believe in visions. I believe that that's the devil, the imagination is the devil's playground.
Oh, wow.
All right. That's how rigid I was. So I did not. So instead, God invaded me with visions. Every time I've had a shift, it's been an invasion. All right. When I was a prosecuting attorney, it was an invasion of love. I did not ask for that. It was an invasion. I didn't say the 4 spiritual laws. I didn't get down on my knees and beg God for forgiveness. I didn't do any of that. It was an invasion.
Wow.
So at this time, another invasion, and these invasions were actually visions. And these visions were of Jesus and me under apple trees, walking along the shoreline, flying, dancing together, eating at the banqueting table. There were all these visions that showed me how special I was, because being special I didn't think being special was important, number one. And if I thought of myself as different, I thought of myself as defective. So he was showing me, God was showing me through these experiences, by eye-to-eye contact, I want you to see how I see you. And it was favored. It was, you are loved, you are cared for, you are brilliant, radiant. It was all these things, right? Mm-hmm. So as I started to adopt all that, and every day I learned about the favor of God. Now we've taught the favor of God. We have heard about the favor of God. We say, I am dearly loved and highly blessed and dearly favored, or something like that. Yes, there's a lot of things people say.
Right.
But I have found over the years, people don't actually understand favor, and they don't know the benefits that are available to them as children of God and as people in the world, and it's available to everyone. So I wrote a book, Have I Ever Told You You're My Favorite? Mm-hmm. And it was all about my journey from going from feeling defective and shameful to special, and how that all changed my life. That book was very a transformative experience for me to even write it. But now it was people wanted me to speak on it. Now, before, people said, you need to get out and speak, Mary. And I go, well, I can't speak in my church. Do I just set up a podium in the mall? I mean,
yeah, people who aren't in the biz just don't understand how that happens. So you're right.
I had no idea how that happened.
Yeah.
So, but what happened is passion happened. A message happened. Being now not about me, but about the audience and about the people that God wanted me to serve and speak to. And now I had the confidence, because of favor, to go and do it. People then started inviting me to come and speak. I started having my own events. And at first, I still had that thing, nobody's going to pay me, so I funded it all myself. All right? I did not make any money. I funded it all myself. And unfortunately, we had savings. I had money that we could use it was my ministry. Mm-hmm. But after doing that a year or so, I recognized I'm going through a lot of money to serve people. I'm paying a lot of money to serve people.
Yes, and I've been there too, actually. So, wow.
And one of the things, and I said to God, well, I don't know how to make money. I mean, I don't get paid much for my speaking, and I love it. But I have to grow up. I have to bring in some money now.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that.
Right.
But I heard this from God. One day I was with my girlfriend, and I was staying in California, and I lived in New York at the time. And I was up in my room having my time with the Lord, and I heard Luke 10:7. And that verse says, a laborer is worthy of his hire. And when I heard that, I said, oh. And all of a sudden I felt disobedient because I wouldn't charge.
Wow.
But I was still not sure. So I went downstairs. My girlfriend was having her time with the Lord. And she said, I think I have a verse for you because I don't think it's for me. And I'm like, well, what is it? Luke 10:7. So then I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it, Lord.
You can't make this stuff up, right?
Can't make this stuff up. But at the same time, I felt, well, that's okay because you know what? I have no clients. So I've nobody to charge anything and any amount of money. So I felt a little relieved.
Oh.
About a week later, I got a phone call. And it was a person saying to me, I heard that you do coaching and counseling. I said, yes. She gave me her situation. Can you help me? And I knew I could help her, but I was terrified she was going to ask me the question, how much do you charge? And again, bullets of sweat pouring down from under my arms, across my forehead, throat constricting, right? And then she does. Oh, good. How much do you charge? And I eked out $50. I thought $50 was like $1 million.
Yeah.
Because remember, I've been trained to not receive money.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Well, you did very well for your first. I think my first was only 25.
Oh, so, there you go.
Yes, you did great for your first. I moved to 50 pretty quickly, but you did great.
Well, and the funny thing is, when I said that, there was this long silence on the other end. And I'm like, oh, should I say 40? Maybe 30. I'll tell her 30. No. I'll go to 25. You know, I'm torturing myself in this silence. And then finally she says, is that all? And at that moment, I felt like, you don't know what you're doing.
Wow. But that is so true, Maryann. So true. We undervalue ourselves all the time. Wow.
Yes. So I've been challenged throughout the years, to increase my rates and to see the value, the difference I make in people's lives, Now that was 10 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And it was a monumental shift. And it's been incrementally shifting. Mm-hmm. As I've come more into, as you come more into, as we come more into seeing not what we're worth, because that's immeasurable. Nobody can pay us what we're worth.
That's true.
And for us to even entertain that thought takes us down a road we shouldn't go. Nobody can pay us our worth. Mm-hmm. It is inestimable and it's immeasurable. Mm. But we can't put dollar signs on the value of the service we offer.
Right.
The value of the transformation we offer. So a lot of times when I work with coaches, I really want them to tell me, let's talk about how have lives been changed because of the work you do, right?
Right.
So anyway, but as time has gone on, I did a series, I made a series too called Destined to Prosper for me, all right, because I needed to find out for myself, I had to get settled. Is this God's plan for us to prosper? And how are we supposed to prosper? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I went all the way back to Adam and Eve, to Abraham, to see what is the plan and the will of God for us to prosper. I talked to Jewish people because Jewish people do not have a problem with prosperity.
That's true.
Okay? They're often faulted for it, but they don't have a problem with prosperity. One of my good friends who's a New York City publisher, she does not have a problem with prosperity. Now, she may have other issues, but she doesn't have that one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Right.
And I asked her why. What is it in the Jewish faith that sets you up for prosperity? And she said, we have a mission. And it's takum alum, I think is the saying, and it means be repairers of the breach. That the world has many broken parts to it. And how are we ever going to make a difference in the world if we are not prosperous?
That is amazing. Wow.
And that was one of my first encounters with really delving deep into this. I started really studying the Jewish mind about prosperity. That was making a difference to me. I started looking at everything in the Bible. For example, we talk about Jesus being impoverished for our wealth, right? But Jesus really wasn't impoverished. Jesus had access to everything that he needed and wanted at any given time through faith.
Well, not only that, but he was a good enough carpenter. Do you think he was did shoddy work as a carpenter or didn't know how to market? I mean, come on now. He was good enough that he could take off for 3 years and his mother and sister were taken care of.
Right.
So
that's good. It's true. Yeah. I mean, sometimes we can have that purpose and that passion and the calling, but we don't have the vehicle.
Yeah.
You know, the work we can do in the world, the hands-on work, we can use our Christian ethics, we can use our spirituality to be a people of integrity and excellence, right? Mm-hmm. But you can still have that and still not charge much. You can still not prosper.
Yeah.
I've known many people who are excellent at their craft, and they can barely buy the materials for it.
Right. Wow, Maryann, this is so good. I really want to continue this. I need to take a break right now, so let's quick do that. And when we come back, we'll continue your story, and then we're going to get into what you're going to be teaching in the academy, which is just going to be mind-blowing and very transformative, because I know that the lessons that you have learned and that have transformed your life, you are able to teach and explain that and articulate it and give people things that they can do the same thing that you did. And so I'm looking forward to that. All right, let's take this break and we will see you on the other side.
Spirit-centered business, spiritual principles, and business principles combined. If you're ready to align your destiny and discover the destiny of your business, join us. We are entrepreneurs, leaders, and business professionals who take the power of the spirit realm in our business seriously. We go beyond just consuming information. We participate, activate, and engage the supernatural with unbelievable results. If you want to gather with like-minded business professionals to activate spiritual principles and mastermind creative solutions to business challenges, Spirit-Centered Business is your tribe. Go to spiritcenteredbusiness.com to become a member today.
And we are back. I have my coach, the amazing Maryann Ehmann, with me. And Maryann, why don't you continue your story and then we'll jump into what you're teaching in the academy. You were studying the Jewish mindset.
Yeah, so I felt like I needed to conquer this. In order to succeed in business and do what it is that God had called me to do, I needed to empower my mindset about wealth and prosperity, abundance. And as you recall, I started off, one of my careers was as a financial planner and designer.
Right.
So from way back, and part of my own history is that my grandfather was a wealthy entrepreneur. My father was an entrepreneur. My mother was a steady Eddie government worker. So I had these different, my grandfather's entrepreneurship was wheeling and dealing. Always had a wad of cash, always had the latest cars, wheeling and dealing, and sometimes a little on the shady side. My dad wanted to be the complete opposite and be full of integrity and do good work, but oftentimes he went bankrupt a couple of times. You know, he believed in being honest, offering great services. He always said affordable, quality homes at affordable prices. He was a home builder. So with those three different approaches to money mindset and watching them fight all the time, no wonder I was so confused about money. And then you enter the church's teaching about it all. You have people like Joel Osteen, who I love, but people would call him, you know, wrong and Christian light. And then you had people that were the name and claim it people. And then you had the people that were dirt poor, all about the word and nothing else, you know. So there is so much out there that is confusing us.
Yes.
What really is God's will about money? What really is God's will? And I needed to know. Now, I didn't know this would be something I would teach. I just had to get it settled for me, right? So that's why I did Destined to Prosper. It turned out to be a teaching that many, many people gravitated toward. And it settled many things for me and for them too. As time has gone on, though, the thing that I've learned is that you can learn a lot of Bible verses, but if you don't understand the programming you've had that stands in the way of the good news, then you don't appropriate it. You don't walk in it. You're double-minded.
Brilliant. I love the way you said that. Yes.
Okay, so that's why it was important not only to learn that, but then the Lord started teaching me his way of prospering. And I started to see it in the Bible, and not just the Jewish mindset, but from him directly. The other thing that happened was I started learning a process. And this is something that I can talk to your academy about also. But I started learning a process of how to identify the limiting beliefs. Because if you don't identify the specific limiting beliefs, then any scripture verses or affirmations or even mantras are just slapping pretty paper over a box of poop. All right? Yep. So I call it poop in the pretty box.
Yeah.
Okay, so unless you really address that, it's still going to stink. It's still going to have its way with you. It's still going to undermine you. And you're not going to have clarity. And you're not going to be able to move forward in the thing God has for you. There's a verse that says, and I just love this, the blessing of the Lord, which the word blessing means that overall blessing he gave to Abraham. It also means the words. It comes from benedictum, which means the words that God speaks to us. What God says about us, what God says we can have. The blessing of the Lord makes a man rich. And that word rich means financial wealth. It doesn't just mean spiritual richness. It's financial wealth. The blessing of the Lord makes a man rich. And he adds no sorrow to it. No toiling to it. So it's not about working like a dog to make a buck. It's not all about earning it, even. All right? It's about positioning yourself in a receiving mode.
Oh, so good. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. You're absolutely right.
So I've had many experiences. I don't know how far you want me to go, but one of the things that happened in 2016 was I was now at a place in coaching where I was making my 6 figures. That was always something that I was like, if I could just make that, right?
Yes.
But I was exhausted. I was exhausted. I started following the world system, marketing systems.
Yep.
And as you know, there is no end of the amount of things that you need to do.
Exactly. I know. Let's see. Did I meet you in, I think I met you in like 15.
17.
I met you in 17. Oh, okay. All right.
It was after my husband's bout with cancer.
Well, I think it was during.
Well, he was in November of 2017. He had been given a clean bill of health, but he was still struggling with the aftermath, all the aftermath of the treatments.
Got it. Okay. All right.
But it was during that period that I finally understood that it's about receiving, not earning. Because I couldn't earn. I was taking care of my husband 24/7.
Right.
And I had a few clients, but my business came all but a screeching stop, and money still flowed in.
Wow. And that is the distinction between being a business owner and making a job for yourself.
Yes.
I love that. Yes.
If I didn't have that kind of business, I could not have taken care of him 24/7.
Right.
I would not have been available, and I would have had to quit. So I could still do some of my business part-time, and that provided me with some income, but income came in from all kinds of strange places. And so I got to see that God is not limited by what we can do to earn money. God is not limited that way. Abundance is everywhere. And when we start tapping in and understanding and receiving and accepting that resting, and the word that God said to me is, when I had a meltdown after all this, get back to love, Maryann.
Yes.
And I went back to that place of love, and through getting back to love, and I won't get into how that happened, but that was a turning point. As long as I stayed in love and flowing in love, abundance would come.
Beautiful.
So I learned the key to unlocking abundance is love.
That's really, really good. I do have a question though, because this was after you had already done the world system of all of the marketing and scrambling and burning out and all of that. So were there any parts and pieces of that systematized streamlining that helped that flow come to you?
You know, I'd like to say there was, but I didn't really have any systems. So here I had a list. All right, so there's an automation there. I had a list, but I had not been doing my list in a while. All right. I had, but if I do want to say this though, and like the clients that I had come from speaking.
Okay.
All right. Almost all my clients came from speaking. All right. And showing up someplace. So it's very important. Money just doesn't fall from the sky necessarily,
right,
but it's more a result of you being you wherever you go, being generous and serving and loving wherever you go. But what I was doing was traveling so much. That was the exhausting part.
Yeah.
Traveling so much, speaking so much, being in front of so many different audiences, taking podcasts, taking interviews, doing on panels. I didn't have any filter. So I was exhausted. But I had a list. And this list, I offered 40 free coaching calls to my list.
That's a lot.
I opened it up for, 60 to 90 minute coaching calls because I just wanted to serve, right? I didn't want to travel. I wanted to serve. And 40 people signed up for coaching calls. And the interesting thing is I coached my butt off, but I didn't make a dime. Not one person signed up for coaching with me on a regular basis. And it wasn't like I was doing it for that reason, but I thought out of 40 people, maybe one or two people.
There was someone would get value of it and want to, yes.
Exactly.
I get that. Yeah.
But they were all people that didn't have money.
Oh, okay. So that's another principle of attracting the wrong people.
Yes.
Because it's free.
Yes. A lot of them were Christians. A lot of them were Christians in ministry.
Oh,
right?
Yes.
So I had a lot of those people, and they did find value. I mean, they were all like people in my sphere now and so forth. But, and I didn't really pitch them because I felt like I just wanted to offer this, and it felt kind of slimy. So there was, again, this conflict in me. I'm offering free coaching sessions. I can't offer my services.
Yeah.
All right. So there was that problem as well. With all that, I became more drained. Now,
of course.
What happened, though, was after I had my Get Back to Love experience, I did have the idea, I do have a list. And I do have Destined to Prosper. I can offer that. And here's the thing, I needed Christmas money. I'm not working.
Yep.
I need Christmas money. Well, thank goodness I had a program that I could offer to people. That's part of the systemized automation that I had learned that came to help me now.
Right.
The other thing that happened was the following year, in between helping my husband in hospital visits, I offered some courses. So one course I offered was, if I don't worry, what do I do instead? And I did a 6-week Zoom teleseminar course, and people paid for that. And I could do it at home. Funny thing is, I was in the hospital. My husband, obviously, when I offered it, I didn't know my husband would have another reason to be hospitalized. So I'm in the hospital. I have to go home and do the course, right? My first session. And somebody sideswipes me on the highway.
Oh,
Hit and
no.
run. Hit and run accident. Sideswipes me.
Oh, no.
So I have to show up on my first call going, I have to postpone. Because I just got sideswiped, you know? And, but if I don't worry, what do I do instead? I had to practice what I preached.
Isn't that funny how God pulls that on us?
Yeah.
Wow.
The second course I did, though, was called Money Loves Me. And I did Money Loves Me because money was coming in from all kinds of places, surprising, delightful places. And I wanted people to open up. So the experience opened up a class. And I had been at an event, and I offered the Money Loves Me class to the people at the event. And I don't know how many people signed up for it, to tell you the truth, but that was another way that we started funding having this cancer experience.
Yes.
So having something that, you got to have a bit of an audience in order for you to make an offering. And this had been 7 years in now at this point. Over 7 years, you'd think I would build a little bit of an audience, right? Even though I wasn't that good at that. But it was enough of an audience to resonate, and it came from my heart. And so I charged for it. If you don't charge, you can't be in business. Plain and simple.
That's right.
If you don't charge, if you don't make money, if you can't support your expenses of your business, you need to find a job. Or open up a nonprofit and get donations.
But that's still just as much work, and now you got, that's a whole other can of worms.
I think it's even harder, personally. Yeah. But anyway, money, Lance Wall now says that cash is the oxygen of a business.
Yep. I love that.
Yeah. And I don't agree with it anymore per se. I believe that love is the oxygen of the business, actually. You can't breathe if you don't have love flowing in you, through you, and out of you, to give generously. You can't breathe. It's too stressful. But money, when it's an outflow of that, when it's an exchange of that, when it is something, money, I believe, is separate from our work. I really do. I think we give of the value that we're here to give, and we charge whatever price we're comfortable charging at the time, but it doesn't necessarily have to flow from, I don't even know how to put it this way. You can't be thinking that, as I said before, what I'm offering is worth it or not worth this money. Because in our world, this is a very arbitrary thing.
Yeah.
We get to set the standards of what we want to receive.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't see it that way. And it is a mind shift, and it is a flop on your head kind of a thinking, because there is, what the market will bear, who are the clients that I want to serve. And I run into so many people who want to serve people who can't afford them. Like, oh, that's a really bad business model right there.
It is. And yet at the same time, I have worked with people who have been on unemployment and have paid me.
Yeah.
All right. It all depends on whether or not what you're offering and the solutions that you offer to people, whether it's to fulfill a desire or to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
If you can be really clear about those two things, this is the desire, your desire I help fulfill, and this is the problem I help you solve. If you can really be clear about those things, and then you look for the people who that is of high value to them.
That's great. Yeah.
Yes. I desire that, and this is standing in the way. I need this. I'm oftentimes the coach of last resort, honestly. And the reason is because many times people are looking for the shiny object in order to solve their problems, in order for them to make more money, in order for them to make a bigger impact, right? They're looking for the shiny object, and whoever's got the shiniest object oftentimes will attract the most attention. But a lot of times it doesn't provide for them the solutions that they're really needing.
Yeah.
And so they spend money, and they spend time, and they spend energy. So you have to be careful, in looking for help of what's the help that's really going to help you get to where you want to go,
Right.
And so my work so much has to do with spirituality and mindset, right? And from there, then we can design the strategies. But a lot of times people don't want to do that kind of work.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why my first book, which is my signature process, Planning to Profit, the first planning is, what are you planning on in your head? Like,
yes.
Are you really having that expectation of profiting?
That is a big book, by the way. There's a lot of work put into that thing. Holy mackerel.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been well received. But I really want to get back to what you are teaching in the academy really has to do with this mindset shift. Now, you named it something amazing. I got to look back at my notes. Oh, abundance is everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's really finding the gold nuggets and really shifting our mind to put up our reticular activating system so we can see it, right? And that's what you're going to be teaching in the academy, to show people how to do that, right? Am I correct?
Yes, I'd love to.
This is going to be amazing. Wow. So for our regular audience, though, please let us know where they can get a hold of you. What is what you're doing currently, what you're promoting right now? Let us know.
Well, they can get the free abundance tracker, or the freeabundancetracker.com. It's actually a love-based abundance kit.
Wow.
And they can get that for free. And what it is they will get a abundance tracker. So because what we focus on expands, and if we are always focusing on lack and what we don't have, that's what we'll get more of. But if we focus on abundance, and that was part of what I needed to do when my husband was going through cancer, I needed to focus on abundance. So I created the abundance tracker. Number 2 in that is an audio of my story and how to track your abundance. We need instruction. And the third thing they get is 30 days of email support to help them stay focused on abundance. When issues of lack and scarcity come up, what do you do with that? So there's 3 pieces to that kit. So freeabundancetracker.com is the website.
Perfect.
The other thing, though, something that's been very exciting to me lately is, and I don't know if I told you about this, Bralynn, but I am offering in November a skydiving retreat for bold women in November in Hawaii.
That's awesome. I don't think I told you this, but I'm doing a cruise retreat in September.
Oh, wonderful.
I know. Let's trade retreats.
Yeah, I know.
That's awesome. Skydiving. Oh my gosh, I haven't done that in forever, 30 years. It's about time, right? Get back into it.
Well, it sure makes a difference in our business. That was the thing that I discovered was that, trust is huge to going to the next level.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we don't go to the next level because we don't know it's there, so we don't trust it, right?
Yes.
But I realized when I was skydiving, the reason I put myself in that position, I mean, number one, it was a bucket thing. Number two, I was doing it with my daughter, which was special.
I saw the pictures and it looked so fun.
It was. But there was a position I wanted to put myself in. I think most of us are a bit of control freaks, right?
Yes.
We try to be people of faith. We try to surrender because we know that, and sometimes we can't get to any other point but surrender. But when I put myself in the position of being totally out of control, attached to somebody who had all the answers, who had all the knowledge, I had none. And to be attached that way, somebody said, "How did you jump out of the plane?" And I'm like, well, I really didn't. I was attached to somebody who did.
Wow.
That opened up a whole new level of trust for me. And, when you're up there, your whole view of the world is different.
Right.
It's different looking at things up here than from down here. So perspective, trust, surrendering, and just enjoying.
Yeah.
Complete exhilaration.
Yeah.
We can put that into our businesses, in our faith.
Mm-hmm.
It can take our faith to a whole nother level. And that's what I want to bring to people, to share with them. Especially women.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
So.
Wow, Maryann, that's so good. So one more time, freeabundancetracker.com, and I will definitely have them in the show notes. Okay. So if you're listening on podcast, you'll want to go to fringeradionetwork.com or spiritcenteredbusiness.com. In the show notes are there. They're also in with the videos on in my YouTube channel on Bralynn Newby. So make sure that you get all of the show notes, because these links and the quotes that she's given us and all of the just the gold nuggets that she's given us, I will write them all down. I've been taking furious notes. So they will all be there. And once again, thank you so much for joining us on spiritcenteredbusiness.com. I appreciate you subscribing. I appreciate your support, sharing with your friends. And until the next broadcast, stay spirit-centered. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Spirit-Centered Business with Bralynn Newby. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. The next stage of doing business by being spirit-centered is coming together in collaboration, working with spiritual principles, and knowing our destiny. Join our tribe at spiritcenteredbusiness.com, and we'll catch you on the next broadcast. Peace out.